Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're going to be focused on the FAA's EPICS ES2 project.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of your research on EPICS ES2 and some notes on a couple of tools that we think could really give you an advantage in bidding on some of these projects.
What's interesting is that it's not just one big contract.
Right.
It's a framework for a whole bunch of projects over the next several years.
Oh, interesting.
And the FAA has pre-vetted companies ready to tackle these, and that's where you come in.
So let's break it down.
Sure.
What exactly does EPICS ES stand for, and what is it trying to do?
EPICS ES2 stands for Enterprise Programs, Infrastructure, and Communication Services 2.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful, yeah.
Okay.
It's a major modernization effort for the national airspace system.
Oh, wow.
You can think of it like upgrading the operating system of U.S. aviation to handle the increasing complexity of air travel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just like airplanes and airports.
Right.
It's the whole system
Exactly. Yeah.
that makes them run.
Everything that makes your planes take off and land safely
Okay, go ahead.
and get to where they need to go.
So EPCS2 covers 7 functional areas,
It does.
from program management and in-service support to financial management and information systems development.
That's correct.
Each area requires a different specific set of expertise.
Yes,
So understanding your strengths in those areas is going to be really crucial to get involved.
absolutely. Knowing where your niche is and where you fit in is crucial.
Now, the source material mentioned that EPICS2 will use time and materials and fixed price task orders. Can you break down the difference between those two types of contracts and why that's important for somebody who wants to bid on these?
Sure. So time and materials is where the FAA pays for the actual hours worked and the cost of materials used.
Okay.
That's good for projects where the scope might evolve as you go.
Right.
And then a fixed price contract has a set price that doesn't change regardless of how much time or resources are ultimately needed.
Okay, so that's a big decision up front then.
Right from the get-go. Yeah.
Like if you go fixed price and then it ends up taking way longer,
They're stuck.
you're kind of stuck.
You are.
And so is the FAA, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
They're getting what they paid for.
They are.
So choosing the right type of contract is a strategic decision.
Very strategic.
And that's something you'd want to consider very carefully when crafting your proposal.
Absolutely. You have to understand the implications of both for both you and the FAA.
Now, submitting a proposal for a project like this just seems daunting.
Well, yeah, it can be. And that's where ProposalHelper comes in.
Okay.
It can guide you through crafting a proposal that meets all the requirements and makes it stand out.
So it's not just about checking boxes and making sure you didn't miss anything.
Right. It's more than just compliance.
It's about making it memorable.
Yes, exactly. A compliant proposal gets you in the door. A compelling one makes you memorable.
Now, you mentioned some really specific formatting guidelines.
The FAA?
Yeah, down to like naming conventions for files and things.
Yes, very specific.
That just sounds like a minefield.
It can be, yeah. But ProposalHelper helps you avoid those pitfalls by giving you templates and checklists based on the FAA's requirements.
So that's going to save a lot of time, particularly for a company that's never done this before.
Absolutely, and it lets you focus on your expertise and not trying to figure out the bureaucracy.
So ProposalHelper makes sure you don't trip up on all those technicalities.
Yeah.
But what about making your proposal really stand out?
Well, think about it like this. The FAA is looking for the best possible partner.
Right.
So you need to show not only your competence, but your strengths and how they're going to meet the needs of EPICS too.
So it's really about tailoring the message to the specific project and what they're looking for.
Yes, and ProposalHelper can guide you through that whole process.
Now, I noticed in the source material it said that even small businesses can compete for these contracts.
They can.
But they probably face some pretty unique challenges.
Of course, they don't have the same resources or track record as a big company.
So how can a small company use ProposalHelper to kind of even the playing field?
ProposalHelper helps you focus your message.
Okay.
So let's say you're a small business that specializes in cybersecurity for aviation systems. You can use ProposalHelper to really emphasize your expertise in that niche, highlight your certifications, and present a targeted case for why you're a perfect fit for that specific project, even if you're not bidding on the whole program.
So it's kind of like saying, we may not be the biggest, but we're the best at what we do.
Exactly. And this is how we can benefit the FAA and EPICS too.
So we've talked about getting that proposal ready, but how do you even know what opportunities are out there?
That's a great question because government contracts can seem really opaque from the outside.
Totally.
And that's where BidExecs comes in.
Okay.
It's your window into the world of FAA opportunities, and it can help you get ahead of what we call the capture life cycle.
Okay, so what's the capture life cycle?
The capture life cycle is the whole process of identifying, pursuing, and winning a contract. It starts long before that formal RFP even comes out.
Oh, wow.
And getting ahead of it means you're not reacting, you're anticipating.
Oh, I see.
And BidExecs gives you the tools to do that.
So you're being proactive and strategic instead of just responding when they finally announce something.
Exactly.
So how does BidExecs help you get ahead in that life cycle?
It does that by analyzing industry trends, identifying potential FAA needs, tracking similar projects,
Okay.
and kind of connecting all the dots so you can see opportunities way before they're announced.
So it's almost like a weather forecast, but for government contracts.
That's a great way to put it.
So it gives you a head start and you can start getting ready and putting together your team and all of that
Exactly.
before the competition even knows about it.
Right. You're ready to go.
That's got to be a huge advantage.
Huge advantage.
So we've got ProposalHelper to help us write that winning proposal and BidExecs to find the right opportunities in the first place.
That's right.
What else should we be thinking about when we're exploring EPICS 2?
One thing that trips a lot of companies up is organizational conflicts of interest,
Oh, yeah.
especially ones that are new to working with the FAA.
So that's when your existing relationships could create a bias.
Exactly, or an unfair advantage.
And the FAA takes that really seriously.
They do. It's a big deal to them.
So you can have the perfect expertise and a great proposal, but if there's no CI, you could be sunk.
That's right.
That's where BidExecs can help again.
It can help you identify and mitigate those potential OCIs early on.
That's got to be a huge relief.
It is.
So we've talked about how BidExecs helps us find opportunities and avoid conflicts. But let's get back to the proposal and ProposalHelper.
Sure.
What else does the source material tell us about what the FAA is looking for in a proposal?
Well, one thing is comparable experience.
Okay.
They want to see that you've handled projects of similar size, type, and scope to what's being proposed under EPICS S2.
So it's not just enough to have experience in aviation.
Yeah, it has to be comparable.
It has to be relevant experience.
And it has to have been successful.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's where ProposalHelper can help.
ProposalHelper can help you pull out the best examples of your past performance and present them in a way that's going to resonate with the FAA.
It sounds like a lot of work, though, digging through old files and things.
It can be, but ProposalHelper streamlines all that.
Oh, good.
It's got tools that help you organize your data, highlight key accomplishments, and make sure you're showing the most relevant information.
So it's almost like having an assistant to help you pull all that together.
It is. It takes all the guesswork out and lets you focus on what you do best, which is deliver.
You mentioned earlier that the FAA wants a good story.
They do.
What are some of the key elements that are going to resonate with them specifically?
They want to see that you understand their challenges and that you have a vision for how your expertise can help them meet their goals.
Okay.
Your proposal shouldn't just list your capabilities.
Right.
It should explain how those translate into solutions for the national airspace system.
So connect the dots between what you can do and what their needs are.
Exactly. And ProposalHelper can guide you through that process.
Now, the source material also mentions pricing.
Okay.
The FAA wants to make sure that the proposals are not just technically sound, but financially responsible.
They want to make sure it's reasonable and realistic.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Price reasonableness means that your cost is in line with the market.
Oh, okay.
You can't be way higher than everybody else just because it's a government contract.
So you can't try to gouge them.
Right. You can't gouge them. And price realism means that your proposal is actually enough to cover the work.
Okay.
They don't want you to lowball just to win the contract because that can lead to problems later on.
So you got to find that sweet spot
Yes, competitive but realistic.
where you can actually do the work for the price.
Exactly. And that can be tough. But ProposalHelper has tools to help you analyze costs, justify your pricing, and present a financially sound proposal.
So it really does sound like ProposalHelper is a comprehensive tool, from compliance to formatting to narratives to pricing.
It's just the whole package.
What about the people who are going to be working on the project?
The team.
Yeah, how do you show off your team strengths?
The FAA wants to know who's on your team, what their qualifications are, and if they're actually going to be available.
Okay.
And they're really specific about how you present that information.
So you can't just throw together a bunch of resumes.
Nope. There's a specific template for key personnel resumes, and each one has to be signed by the person saying they're available.
That makes sense. They want to know that you have a team ready to go, not just names on paper.
Exactly. They want commitment from the people who are going to be delivering.
Now, what if you have a great team, but you're missing expertise in one specific area?
That happens a lot, especially with a program as big as APCS2.
So what do you do?
That's where teaming comes in. You can partner with another company.
Oh, so you can subcontract or do a joint venture.
Exactly, and fill those gaps.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
It lets companies focus on what they're good at and still offer a complete solution.
And bid execs can actually help you find the right partner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's got a database of companies and their capabilities so it can identify potential partners based on their expertise, their experience with the FAA, and their past performance.
So BidExecs is like a matchmaker.
It is, you could say that it helps you build the best team.
So this is starting to feel a lot less overwhelming.
Good, I'm glad.
Like we've got the tools to guide us through the process, and the FAA has given us some good information and resources.
They have.
What's the last thing you'd like to leave our listeners with as we wrap up this part of the deep dive?
EPICS2 is a massive project, but it's an amazing opportunity to be a part of shaping the future of aviation.
Wow, that's cool.
So don't be intimidated. Embrace the challenge, use the tools and the resources, and the sky's the limit.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring.
Good. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Okay, so you're telling us about OCIs
Yes, organizational conflicts of interest.
and how BidExecs can help us avoid them.
Well, bid execs acts like a watchdog.
Oh.
It looks at your company's existing relationships and compares them to the companies involved in EPICS2.
Uh-huh.
So let's say you've worked with a company that's now competing for an EPICS2 project.
Right.
Bid execs will flag that early on.
So it's like a preemptive strike.
Exactly. It gives you time to either change your strategy or take steps to mitigate the conflict.
And that's before it even becomes a problem.
Right, exactly.
That's got to be a huge relief.
Especially for companies that might not even realize there's a potential issue.
So we've talked about BidExecs helping us find opportunities and avoid conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get back to the proposal itself
Okay.
and ProposalHelper.
Sure.
What else did the source material say about what the FAA is looking for?
One thing they emphasize is comparable experience.
Okay.
They want to see that you've handled projects of similar size, type, and scope to what's being proposed under EPICS2.
So it's not enough to just have experience in aviation.
Right. It has to be relevant and successful.
So it has to have actually worked.
Yes. They want to see results.
So how does ProposalHelper help with that?
ProposalHelper helps you pick the best examples from your past performance and present them in a way that the FAA will understand.
Okay.
It helps you connect the dots between what you've done and what they need.
But isn't that a lot of work digging through old project files?
It can be, but ProposalHelper makes it easier.
How?
It has tools to organize your data, highlight accomplishments, and make sure you're showing the most relevant information.
So it's like having an assistant to help you put your best foot forward.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
You talked earlier about how the FAA wants a good story.
A compelling narrative.
What are some things that are going to resonate with them?
They want to see that you understand their challenges and that you have a plan for how your expertise can help them reach their goals.
Okay.
So don't just list what you can do. Explain how it translates into solutions.
Got it.
Show them the value you bring.
Now, the source material also mentions pricing.
Yeah, they want to make sure it's reasonable and realistic.
Okay, can you break that down for me?
Yeah, sure.
What does that actually mean?
Price reasonableness means your cost is in line with what other companies are charging.
Okay.
You can't inflate your prices just because it's the government.
Right, you can't take advantage.
And price realism means your proposal is actually enough to cover the work.
Oh.
You're not lowballing just to get the contract.
Right, because then you might not be able to actually do it.
Exactly. It could lead to problems down the line.
So you have to find that sweet spot.
Yes. Competitive, but realistic.
So you can actually deliver quality work.
Exactly.
And ProposalHelper can help with that too.
It can. It has tools to help you analyze your costs, justify your pricing, and present a financially sound proposal.
Wow. It really does sound like a comprehensive tool.
It's designed to cover all the bases.
Okay, so we've talked about the proposal and the pricing.
Uh-huh.
What about the people who are actually going to be doing the work? Yeah. How do we showcase their strengths?
The FAA wants to know who's on your team, their qualifications, and if they'll actually be available for the project.
Right.
And they're very specific about how you present that information.
So it's not just a matter of throwing some resumes together.
No, they have a specific template for key personnel resumes, and each one has to be signed
Oh, wow.
to confirm their availability and commitment.
That makes sense.
It shows they're serious.
So what if you have a great team, but you're missing expertise in one specific area?
That's where teaming comes in.
Oh, right. You can partner with another company,
Exactly. Find someone who complements your strengths.
so you can offer a more complete solution.
That's the idea.
And bid execs can help with that too.
It has a database of companies and their capabilities,
Oh, wow.
so it can help you find the right partner based on their expertise and experience.
So it's like a matchmaking service for government contractors.
Yeah, you could say that.
This is all starting to make a lot more sense.
I'm glad to hear that.
Like, we've got the tools to guide us, and the FAA has given us some good information.
Yeah, they've been pretty clear about what they're looking for.
So what's the main takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say EPICS 2 is a huge project, but it's also a huge opportunity.
Right.
So don't be afraid to go for it. Use the tools and resources that are available.
And don't be intimidated.
Exactly. The sky's the limit.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into EPICS 2.
Yeah, excited to wrap this up.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
like the scope of EPICS 2,
Yeah.
the importance of compliance, crafting a good proposal, teaming OCIs,
A whole 9 yards.
and we talked about how those tools, ProposalHelper and bid execs, can really help.
Absolutely game changers.
It's been eye-opening, and I feel a lot more confident about this whole FAA contracting world now.
That's what we like to hear. Knowledge is power, especially in this field.
Definitely. And speaking of knowledge, I wanted to touch on one more thing from the source material. The FAA seems to really emphasize continuous improvement and innovation.
Yeah. They want companies that can not only deliver on the current requirements, but also think ahead.
They're not just meeting the specs, but coming up with new ideas.
Exactly. Pushing the boundaries.
So how do we actually show that in our proposals?
Good question, because it's one thing to say you're innovative.
Right.
It's another to prove it.
Exactly.
That's where you highlight things like research and development patents, innovative solutions you've already implemented.
So those moments where you went above and beyond.
Exactly. The aha moments.
And don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Not at all. The FAA wants partners who can challenge the status quo.
I like that it's not just about upgrading technology, but about a whole culture of innovation.
Yeah, a system that's not only safe and efficient, but also adaptable.
And that's something we can all get excited about.
For sure.
Whether we're working on EPICS AD or just flying.
Passengers benefit too.
So this deep dive has been about empowering you.
That's right, giving you the tools and knowledge to be a part of this.
We've broken down EPICS and ILD and explored those tools and hopefully given you some ideas
And sparked your imagination.
about how to contribute to the future of aviation.
It's an exciting time to be involved.
This is just the beginning.
Keep learning, keep innovating, and reach for the skies.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that wraps up our deep dive into EPICS Onayo.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.